Oh, man. Get your house in order, man. Today we have Ryan Michler, host of the Order of Man podcast. Hey, I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host, and you are in for a treat today. Ryan is a rising star. I'd say maybe he has risen. I'm going to be seeing him in Phoenix here shortly at the Meltdown in the Desert 2. Looking forward to that. Colby K's putting that on. I had Colby on the Sales podcast not too long ago. You can scroll back a few weeks and hear his episode. But Ryan has an epic beard, but he's got an epic story, a more epic story than even his epic beard. So you are in for a treat. What a good dude. I love the story, and he is keeping it real. On his podcast, he's keeping it real on his regular updates online on social media. He's got some solid programs to help you get your act straight. So whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to get a lot out of this episode. If you need help getting more out of yourself, one-on-one, condensed, effective, dang near immediate, check out digdeep.today. Digdeep.today. I've been talking about that. It's a new program. And, I just sat back and dug deep myself. I bought that URL, a couple of months ago, and I've been just pondering it. I knew I had to do something with it because I keep seeing all these superficial people out there. Man, there's so much noise. And, owning the Sales Whisperer now for 11 years, working with small businesses and even some bigger businesses. I've worked with a lot of big names, especially in the internet marketing space. These coaches, these speakers. I've been the guy behind the scenes helping them automate things. And a lot of them are real, but man, a lot of them are not. And I see their struggles, and I see people, I see what they post online, then I see behind the scenes, and I get to know them. And it's disheartening on many levels. And for the most part, for me, it's disheartening because it's misleading listeners. It's misleading people that just don't know any better. Maybe you're new in business. Maybe this is a new venture for you. And you see things that you think are real, but they're not. The way people post and share and the images they want to portray. I saw just the other day somebody posted something like, may you have a life, as joyful and wonderful as it appears on Facebook. And, and I said, yeah, I'm just a grumpy old man that sips whiskey. Now get off my lawn. Right. But I have people over to my house and post pictures of the dogs and kids napping and, sipping a little whiskey. I've got a chaotic little life with 7 kids and now 2 dogs. But I talk about, I was interviewed just yesterday, actually, Brian Benson's podcast. And I've, intentionally delayed, and I won't say avoided, but I've delayed making more money in order to have more of a life. Taking 2.5, 3 hours a day to go roll jiu-jitsu in the middle of the day. I avoid big trips. I don't go to a lot of conferences unless, I can drive to them. Every now and then I'll fly, but I like being in control, being able to hop in my car and get back home. Took a week with a 2-week notice, took a week and went to Argentina with my son, basically shut everything down because I could. That's how I define success. I think people really are misdefining what success is. And for the most part, it's materialistic. It's almost like we're going through the 80s again. And it's kind of weird, but I digress. So that's why I created this Dig Deep. It starts with my IPA, the initial process assessment. Very affordable, detailed questionnaire. And then the questionnaire is just to get you some clarity, and then we dive in. It's recorded. It's video. It's one-on-one. You can bring partners, spouses, however you want to do it, to dig deep. Okay? And it's the most affordable way I can think of right now to get you one-on-one help with me. And then we can talk about other ways we can work together after that if we both agree you can benefit from it and that I have something to offer you. Okay, check that out, digdeep.today. Now, let's bring on Ryan. Ryan Michler, the man with the awesome beard from Utah, fresh off a killer interview with the man Ted Nugent. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Good, man. How you doing? You like that interview with Ted Nugent? That was a wild, wild show, but it was good.
That was awesome, dude. You know what?
It was fun.
Keep it real, man. Keep it real.
That's right. That's right.
So,
I got a lot of response on that one. Some good, some bad.
Hey, that's fine. You got to stay in the news, right?
That's right. That's right.
They say if you don't piss somebody off by noon, you're not marketing.
I agree. I agree with that. And I tend to do it early. I don't even wait till noon, man. I do it right off the bat. My wife actually, it's really funny. My wife will ask me, who are you going to piss off today? It's like, that's not the goal. You know, that's just a byproduct of putting yourself out there. But I don't intentionally try to piss people off.
Yeah. Just because everybody's sensitive doesn't mean I'm going to change.
That's right. That's right.
Oh my gosh. And everybody is sensitive. What's going on? Is that why you created Order of Man? You saw a bunch of little sensitive people everywhere?
That's it. That's a really good question. I don't know if it had anything to do with that as much as just seeing a lack of masculinity and manliness in the world today. And certainly for me, I lacked that. And so I started Order of Man really with the goal and ambition of helping myself. And if I could share this journey with others, then so be it.
So walk us through that. I mean, we have listeners that don't know your story. But, I mean, you've got a successful website, group, podcast, an epic beard. But life wasn't always just wonderful, was it?
Yeah, I mean, and it's not that way for anybody, right? I mean, we all have struggles. We all have challenges. We all have things that we go through and baggage and things that we deal with. And I think what I see a lot of people do is they'll allow that stuff to cripple them, right? Or they'll use an excuse, to your point about sensitivity, and they'll use that as an opportunity to play victim and poor me, and the world's out to get me, and this isn't going right, and that's not going right, and the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and we don't have the right president, and we don't have this, and my wife doesn't love me, and all of this stuff that we play, the scripts in our head, and I certainly did that. I grew up without a dad in my life. I had some stepfathers come into my life who weren't great examples of what it meant to be a man. I floundered. I struggled within our relationship. 4 years into our relationship with my wife, we did call it quits. Fortunately, I managed to learn a few things along the way and accept responsibility for my fair share of the deal. And we will be married 13 years this year. And that was the catalyst for growth for me. And we can get specifically into what I did, but that's where I realized, man, I need to change. I need to be a better man. And in order to do that, you have to take full responsibility, full accountability for yourself and stop playing that victim, although there are things outside of your control. And this is what I did, and man, the results speak for themselves.
So back then, I mean, were you a cubicle dwelling, corporate America type, and then launch your own business, or walk us through that evolution?
Yeah, you bet. So the way that it worked for me is I spent some time in the military. So 2005, 2006, I was in Ramadi, Iraq. Over there with our unit, and I came back and I actually got into the financial planning practice, and that's a long story. I won't bore you with the details of that, but for the past 9 years or so, right after I had gotten back from Iraq, I got into the financial planning business. I worked for one company, and then I found a better company and worked for them, and I was really trying to make this work. And I still have my financial advisory practice because at some point I branched out, not at some point, it was roughly 3 years ago, I branched out on my own and started my own practice. My wife and I were actually talking about this, and I've always kind of felt out of place in the financial planning world. I never felt like I got a foothold. I never felt like I got my feet under me very well. But she did notice a huge difference. She said this just the other night, in fact, a huge difference in my psyche, if you will, and just my personality and the way that I was present and available for my clients and my family when I started my own business, which again was roughly 3 years ago, and maybe a little longer now, maybe 4 years. And just over 2 years ago, I started Order of Man, which has completely changed my life 180 degrees from where it was just 3 short years ago.
So, all right. So you launch out on your own, and that probably wasn't necessarily easy. I got started when I left the Air Force in '97. I got started in the financial services field as well. and didn't go as planned. And oh well, things happen. But I know plenty of people that do, and usually it's an ugly divorce when you go out and hang a shingle. Was it a smooth transition for you, or did you have to fight for that?
From going from the financial planning practice I was to starting my new practice, or now with Order of Man?
No, to start your own financial planning, because usually they want to hold on to you. It's a fight for clients. Blah,
Sure,
blah.
sure. Yeah, and I had some of that, and I'll be honest, like I probably knew for anywhere from 6 to 8 months that I was going to be transitioning out and going out on my own. So I had a pretty good understanding of how that was going to work. And so for the last 6 months leading up to my departure, I actually planned and got this all figured out. So I walked away from about 6 figures of income, which is, the golden handcuffs, right? To your point, they want to keep you there, and it's in their best interest, for you to stay there as long as you possibly can. And I didn't have what they call a vested contract, which means essentially you, for lack of a better term, own your clients, or own your book of business is probably the better term. And so I had to walk away from that. And that was a rough thing, but I knew it was the right decision. And almost instantaneously, I started making significantly more money than I was making when I was working with that firm. So it made sense very quickly for us.
Yeah, it's amazing when it's your own business how much more you can put into it, huh?
Yeah, it really is. And the thing for me is I've always been a guy who's like, I want to do it my way. And if I have to reinvent the wheel, so be it. I know that's not always the best way to go about doing this. But at the end of the day, that's what I did. And it served us very, very well. And it served my clients well. And I got fully invested in that process. And it's been a good ride, man. It really has. And for me, not working for anybody else is a great thing.
So there you are with your khakis and your Ibbotson charts and talking about dollar cost averaging, and you say, you know what, I'm going to grow a big beard and talk about manly stuff. How the heck does that happen?
Yeah, that's a really interesting process. And when you put it like that, it's like, wow, that does sound kind of weird.
Hello, welcome to the office. Would you like a cappuccino, sir? And we're going to review your bond portfolio. Rah, while I pull out this big K-bar knife and talk about M16s and stuff.
That's right. That's exactly how the conversation. Were you there? Were you there for that? That's exactly how it went.
I am the sales whisperer. I'm kind of omnipotent at times. I don't like to show off, but I do have those abilities.
That's funny. Yeah, no, so for me, I had started a podcast with the financial planning practice. It was called Wealth Anatomy, and the goal was to help medical professionals with their financial planning services. So their insurance, investments, retirement planning, all of that fun stuff that I was doing. And when I did the podcast, I was about 20 episodes in, and I realized, man, I love the medium of podcasting. I love having conversations like this and extracting knowledge from people who have information and wisdom to share. But I realized pretty quickly, like I said, 20 episodes, that I didn't want to continue to have the same conversation I'd been having forever. And I had been following some other blogs and podcasts. Art of Manliness, Brett McKay was one. There were some others that I was following, and I thought, man, I've really got something to add. I've really got something to share when it comes to this conversation about how to be a better man. I've never put myself out there as a guru or an expert. I'm certainly not, and I'm figuring out this stuff along the way. But I feel like I did figure some stuff out, and I do know some things, and I know some pitfalls that should be avoided, and that's what I set out to share. And so when I had the podcast Wealth Anatomy, essentially I just shifted, and I said, we're going to call this Order of Man now, and we're going to do it this way, and here's what we're going to talk about. And I launched the website, and the first thing I did is I went to a conference. It was Men's Style Con. It was a style conference of all things. And I met some incredible guys at that conference, and I really attribute a lot of the early growth to attending a conference like that and putting myself out there and launching this thing. So I didn't start the business with any intention to grow this what it's grown to today. I just did it to have some conversations to help me be a better man. That's the long and short of it.
That's awesome. So yeah, you see some of the others that are out there. And kind of model it after, but also use it as inspiration. But what was going through your mind, on that first one, right? And was it a monologue, right, or did you have a guest? I like getting into the details of that that initial start, right? That you're doing 20, you're talking to people, you're talking about financial markets, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's be a man. That's looking back after 2 years, it's easy. But did you have some trepidation, some concerns, some glitches in that launch?
So my expectations of the thing were pretty low, quite honestly. Like I said, I didn't start it to launch a business. I already had a business, and we were doing very well within the financial planning practice, and I was happy and I was satisfied and things were good, and I felt like I'd been doing better than I had ever done in my practice. This was just an opportunity to expand some of the things that I wanted to talk about, which was cool. That was a great opportunity to do that. So again, I started with low expectations. That being said, when I got started, I did invite some guests on that I had met through some of the things that I was doing with the financial planning podcast. And so I had a very early on, I had a guest to talk about money, because that's what I had done in the past. We had some other guests on that I was introduced, and some podcasts that I had already been following. And so I just started reaching out to people. I'm like, hey, let's have you on the show. Hey, let's have you on the show. Hey, let's have you on the show. And then I started to realize that if I was going to grow this thing, I need to get a higher quality guest on the show, I guess you'd say, for maybe lack of a better term. So I started reaching out to people with bigger audiences and bigger tribes, if you will. And they started coming on the show, which is a testament to not me, but the message that we started sharing and how much it resonates with other people. So I did that. So I got some other great guys on the show. What was really funny is I was about 8, maybe 9 months into this thing of just doing it as a hobby, frankly. And my wife came to me one evening and she said, Ryan, I can see that you're happy. I can see that you're excited about what you're doing and you're passionate. And I see this energy that I haven't seen in you for a long time. But at the end of the day, like, you're spending more and more time with Order of Man and less time with the financial planning practice. So you need to figure out, you either need to scale back and spend more time because our family income is being affected, or you need to find a way to make money. And that's what I did. I went to work on finding a way to make money through Order of Man. And we launched a course in November of 2015 called the Iron Council. It was a 12-week course. I had 12 guys there. I made $1,000 on the course, which was nothing, but I realized, this can actually work, and people will pay money to be part of this and get the information that I have to share and some of my other expert guests had to share. And that was the start of actually turning this into a business. So, we didn't start making money until 8-9 months into the thing.
Yeah, and even then, though, it was a modest income, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a nice way to put it. It was modest is not the word for it. It was like $1,000. What was that gonna do? Pay the grocery bill or whatever it may be. So, yeah, it started very slow, but once I turned it on, and in January of 2016, it really took off. And we still have the Iron Council, and that Iron Council is an ongoing mastermind exclusive brotherhood. We've got 280 members in that group now, and that started with 12 guys in the end of 2015.
So, all right. So you start with 12, and it was a set course? I missed some of that.
Yeah. It was a set course. Okay. It was a 12-week course is what it was. And we had focused on each week, we had focused on a specific topic. I identified 8 topics that every man needs to adhere to and work on. And then we added some extra elements to that to extend it to a 12-week course.
How did you make that course? Because I know a lot of people get frozen with the details, right? They have this 5 and 10 year plan, right? I want to help 1 million entrepreneurs. And you're like,
right.
Okay, right now you're just binge watching House of Cards. How are you
help one person, right?
How are you going to do that? And they're like, well, maybe I should have a course, and maybe, I don't know, a workbook, and
Sure.
I don't know, a private Facebook group. But should I use Aweber or just use MailChimp for now? Or, I don't know. Maybe I should do it on Kajabi. Or you pulled the trigger and created a course. Why 12 weeks? Did you have a workbook? What's those early stages? Did I lose you? The microphone has gotten lost in his massive manly beard.
Hey, Wes, are you there?
There you are.
There I am. Hey, sorry about that. I don't know what happened to my my sound, but I don't know if you could hear me, but I could hear you. So, do you want to? So you wanted to know how I started that course, though, right?
Yeah. So you're hanging out, and your wife's like, "Hey, we got to make some money," and you go, "Yeah, I'll do a 12-week course." Yeah,
sure, that sounds good. That's really what it was. I mean, at the end of the day, here's the deal. The one thing that I feel like I'm very good at, and I'm happy to share this, is that I take action just about as good as anybody else. And I've never had a problem with the lack of details or specifics hold me back, almost to a fault at times. And I know that I've certainly paid more money and had to go back and, I've stuck my foot in my mouth and I've done a lot of things because of that. But at the end of the day, it's actually served me well overall. And so when I launched the course, I set up a separate Facebook group. You alluded to that. And I had worksheets that I had just done through a Word document that I would send out to the guys. I think I would email it to them every single week. I'd say, here's your assignment. Here's what we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss this in the Facebook group. And I use some video conferencing software. In fact, I may have been using Skype at first. I'm not anymore. And again, that comes back to the detail things. Like, I'm not going to allow the details and the minutia and the whatever it may be to keep me from just launching something and then expanding and growing along the way. And we've expanded our offering, and we've brought in technology, and we've systematized the process for bringing new guys on. And so we're constantly developing. But I think the biggest thing is just to get going and do something. And to your point where you're like, yeah, a 12-week course. Was that the best thing? I don't know, but it worked. And so it was good enough. And good enough is sometimes exactly what you need to get launched.
Yeah. How did you advertise that first group?
I actually had, and I still do. We've got an open Facebook group. I better use the right terminology. It is a closed group, but it's available to any man. There's no cost to be part of that. It's a Facebook group. And I think at the time we had 1,000 guys in that group. And I had a couple of guys come to me and say, hey, we want more. We want to do more. We want to be more. We want to get more involved. How can we do that? And that's why we formed the course. And I had heard about doing courses through another podcast, and they said it's a great way to make money. And there's all kinds of different ways to make money. That's just the way that we did it. So what I did is I went to the 1,000 guys in this Facebook group and I said, hey, I'm launching a course. It's a 12-week course. I've got 12 spots. It's going to be very inexpensive because I haven't done this before. Who wants in? And I had maybe 10 sign up almost instantaneously, and I had another 2 or 3 sign up over the next couple of days, and boom, we were off to the races. In fact, so we've still got about, and I'd have to look for specifics, but out of the 12 that originally signed up, we've still got 7 of them as members a year and a half later. And a couple of months ago, my very first member sent me the email that I had initially sent him. And it basically said, hey, and I still have this email. It said, hey, thanks for placing your trust in me. Now we're 2 guys or something like that. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he's still with us as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I love that. Just, pull the trigger and ride the bullet, right?
Just go. Yeah. And you can figure it out along the way. And the worst thing that can happen is that you realize, oh, that didn't work. And so you pivot and you adjust and you make some new calculations, and then you keep driving forward.
It's it's awesome and smart. I mean, that you had that group, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance all this, like a Facebook page, a profile, an open group, a closed group, but open, and free, then a private paid group. I mean, how do you balance that? How do you know where to spend your energy? I'm going to share this post on the private group. I'm going to share this on my profile and link to my group. Is there a method to that madness?
At this point, it's a process of experimentation. And so I think too many of us as entrepreneurs or sales associates or whatever it may be, marketers, we look at life as like the end result is what I'm after. And I agree. I mean, I want the end result. I want the money. I want the business. I want the relationship. I want the vacations. Like, I want that end result. But I found that the more that I focus on the process and look at my business and my relationship and my fitness journey as a journey and a process of experimentation, the better off I am. So when I make a post in the Facebook group, for example, I'm very deliberate. I'm very intentional. I put it there because I want to see how it does. And so I can use the Facebook group with 30,000 men in that group now, and I can look at that and I can make a post And as valuable as it is to the guys there, it's also very valuable to me because I find out very quickly if this is something that even resonates with the guys inside of the group. If it resonates, good. I can expand that to other platforms. If it doesn't resonate, it's probably not a message that just these guys aren't interested in. So it's a great opportunity for me to get some feedback because I've got this built-in tribe that we've created who want the information and are willing to give me feedback deliberately or even unintentionally on what it is we're trying to build here. So I think we ought to just look at our businesses more as experimentation. And the best way to do that, and I think a lot of people miss the boat here, is to create some sort of system where you're actually reviewing what it is you're doing. Because everybody will get on this podcast and they'll talk with you about how important daily planning is and how important execution. And those are gimmies. Like, obviously, you got to plan out your day. Obviously, you've got to execute. But the one area that I see a lot of entrepreneurs fall short is the review process. So I ask myself, what did I get done today? Or what did I get done when I made that social media post? What didn't it accomplish? What did I do well? What didn't I do well? And here's the kicker. And the last question is, what will I do better next time to ensure that this is going to continue to be a success? And that's how you develop and grow through that review process.
So something like, do you just literally every day look at your analytics, or what do you mean by review? Like, how detailed do you get?
Well, it depends on what it is you're trying to review. So if I'm talking about the day in general, for example, I plan out that day and I write down a plan. Here's what I want to do. Here's when I want to do it. Here's the conversations. Here's the people I want to connect with. Here's the post that I want to make. And then I'll go back at the end of the day and say, okay, check those off. Check. Got all that done. Great. Boom. We're doing good. For example, if it's this podcast, before we got on the call, I thought to myself, okay, I've got to put myself in the best light. I've got to share some information. I've got to be valuable to Wes. I've got to be valuable to his audience. And so I'll go back at the end of this and do a very informal, what I call after action review. So did I do what I set out to do? Where did I fall short? Did I miss a question? Was I not very clear or intentional about something that maybe I was asked? And then how am I going to do better on the next podcast, which is this afternoon that I'll be on? If you're talking about Facebook, for example, you can look at engagement. You can look at the analytics that way. And if you see a post that you make and it has 500 likes, well, you know that compared to something that maybe gets 50 is 10 times more engaging. And so writing that down and just having that in the forefront of your mind and understanding, okay, I'm going to talk more about beards, for example, or more about breaking up with your wife, or more about, I made a post this morning about not being a quote unquote nice guy. And that's something that resonates very well with the audience. So yeah, I'm looking at analytics, and then I'm just doing these very informally for some other areas.
So will you start in the group with that post and then take it to your profile, or will you start with your personal and bring it to the group?
I usually will start with the group. If it's business related, I start with the group, and then I can move it from there, because here's the thing. If I do it on my personal profile, or if I do it anywhere else, the demographic isn't the same as my ideal demographic in the group, right? Because, for example, it's order of man, so I speak to men exclusively. So if I put something on my personal page and women resonate very well with it, that's great. I have nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't mean that a group of men will resonate with that message the exact same way that a group of women would. And so I start getting this false feedback from putting my information out there to whoever wants to consume it, rather than to a very select, filtered, I guess you'd say, a group of men who are my ideal audience.
Right. Yeah, very cool. But still, that you have the group. Is the method to grow? Is the strategy, give the value there in the group and let them invite others into the group? Because if you're only preaching to the choir, right, the choir is not going to grow. Or does the choir bring others in because you focus there? You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the bottom line, is that we want to be around other guys who are like-minded. And I encourage the members of the Facebook group to invite their brothers and their colleagues and their friends and their dads and other men in their life. The other thing that's very cool is Facebook will actually suggest groups. So like I said, we've got just under 31,000 members in the group right now. And I will ask, we get anywhere from 150 to 200 new members per day. And so as these guys come in, I will ask, how did you find us? And the bulk majority I thought would come from the podcast, because that's where our largest traction is and our largest audience. But that's not where they come. Where they come from more than anything else is that Facebook suggested the group. And here's how that works. If you and I are a member of ABC, the Sales Whisperer, right? If you and I are part of that group and we have two common friends and friends in common, then Facebook's going to see that and say, hey, these two guys are part of this group and they're friends with these other two guys who aren't part of this group. We need to make sure that these other two guys know that this group is going on. So a lot of people are getting suggested to the group through Facebook recommendations.
Right.
Which is awesome, because you're attracting friends and circles of friends, and that's what you want.
Well, and that enables you also to focus, right? You can say, hey, I'm just going to give a lot of value in the group, and I'm going to let the group bring in the members. So that way you don't have – your efforts won't be watered down or spread all over, right?
Right, and of those 150 to 200 people that join per day, we might lose 20 to 50 of them because they look at the message or they look at what we're doing, or they see me or my message and they're like, I don't agree with this or I don't like this, and so they leave. And that is also a great process. It's a great filtering tool for finding people who really resonate with what you have to say. They like you, they know you, they trust you, and just as important, if not more important, they will buy from you when you make products or courses or systems or platforms or programs or events. They'll purchase those things, and right. That's how to create a successful business.
Yeah. But then the question becomes, how do you get that initial 1,000?
Yeah, in the Facebook group to begin with?
Yeah.
That's a good question. And I feel like I had an advantage here. And the advantage for me was the podcast. I had been going with the podcast for about 6-7 months before I even started the group. Yeah. And so and even to this day, if somebody listens to the podcast, they're going to hear me talk about the Facebook group. I still bring it up. So odds are that anybody listening to this probably has an audience somewhere else. Either they've got a podcast, or they've got a blog, or they've got an email list, or they've got Instagram followers or Twitter they've got an audience somewhere else. What I would suggest is if somebody wants to build a Facebook group, that they just ask wherever their audience is currently to come over to this group, and then encourage those people to share their own stories, their insights, their victories, their setbacks, all of their own stuff, and invite other people that would be interested in having these types of conversations you're wanting to have.
Dude, I thought you were good, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry to disappoint if I am. I don't know.
7 to 8 months. I thought it was like an Instagram meme, and it just like they came like that day.
Yeah, I wish that were the case, but just realistic expectations said it's just not going to happen like that.
If you had the right Snapchat filter, you would have gotten those people in the same day.
Enlighten me, because I would love to know about that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to send you my private consulting link.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's we're really going to have to work on this, man.
That's funny. It is pretty interesting, because I do even now get a lot of people, even my friends and family will say, oh, you're so lucky. You get to be on Facebook all day, or look how many people are following you. Like, how nice would that be? I'm like, yeah, it's nice, but you haven't seen the last 2.5 years of relentless. Like I post and I put up blog posts and I do the podcast and I do everything that I do, even when I don't want to. I did do a podcast a month ago, and I had completely lost my voice because I coached my 2 boys' baseball teams, and I had completely lost my voice, and yet I still had to wake up and do a podcast. And I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I love doing it, but I didn't want to do it that day, and yet I still did it because that's what's required to have success, is that consistency in your actions.
Sounds like you coach the way I coach.
Loud.
No, throw that ball. He's
Throw it in. That's right. That's exactly
hit
right.
the cutoff. Oh my gosh.
Yep. That's exactly right. Sometimes I don't have to yell as much as I do other times. So they were off that night. It must have been.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 boys first and then 5 girls, and the boys played baseball, and I coached them in flag football and everything. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love it. It's hard. It's definitely hard, and it teaches me a lot of patience. But man, I love it, and I love when the season's over too.
Amen. Oh man. So why a closed group versus an open group? And do you have an open group?
Well, so we might be getting into terminology a little bit here, and I just want to make sure I understand. So when you say closed, it is technically, yes, it is a closed group, but any man that wants to be involved in that group, all they have to do is request access, and we approve them. There's no filtering process or anything like that.
Right, but they do have to request and be approved.
Yes.
Versus just clicking you're part of the group.
Yeah, so the reason we did that is, and this is going to sound interesting, but let me explain myself before anybody jumps to conclusions. Is the reason that we did that is if we have an open group, then women can join. And I don't have any problem with women, and I love what women have to say, and I have conversations with women every single day. So let me just get that out of the way. But when a woman enters the conversation about the types of conversations we're having, the dynamic changes. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, the dynamic of the conversation changes, and guys start to get into this beat my chest mode, or I can't even say fully what I want to say because this woman might think less of me. And so we can't have the types of conversations that I am trying to facilitate within Order of Man if there are women in the group. And so that is the reason that we chose a closed group over an open group.
Very cool. That makes sense. And so what are you doing with your financial business? Do you envision like selling that off, or are you going to keep that?
Yeah, so right now I don't take on any new clients. In fact, it's really interesting. The more that I move into Order of Man, the more referrals and introductions I get to prospects and potential new clients. It's just, I guess, the way the world works. Kind of like when you're not on the market, then all the women want you to be on the market, right? But when you are, it's like, no, you can't get a date. It's a lot like that. So I don't take on any new clients, but I do manage my existing book of business. And that's been fairly easy up to this point. But the more I get involved with Order of Man and the deeper I go and the more programs and live events, which we're bringing online and things like that, then at some point, yes, it will be in my client's best interest. It'll be in my best interest to make sure that they're being taken care of the way they deserve to be taken care of. And that probably comes down to a sale of the financial planning practice at some point.
Yeah. But with all that experience, man, I need to know exactly where the Dow is going to be at the end of the year because I got to move some money around. So look,
if that were the case, man, I wouldn't even be in the financial planning practice. I'd be in the Bahamas or something, sipping on margaritas if I knew exactly where I was going to be.
Come on, look, I went ahead and hit pause on this, so nobody. It's just you and me, man.
Just you and me. This is off the record, okay?
Yeah, this is. I need to know, man. I got to move some money. Okay, you.
I wish I could tell you. I really do.
I remember when I was a stockbroker, this guy said, "Do you know why there are no rich stockbrokers?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." He said, "Because they don't believe their own bullshit." I was like, "Ouch."
Well, there is a lot of truth to that. And, my financial planning practice, one of the things that I really focus on is, and I heard this quote and it's so great, is somebody, an advisor who ended up becoming a coach of mine, said about his own practice. He says, I don't coach people with money problems. I coach money with people problems. and that's the reality is I think sometimes, a lot of time, most of the time, we are our own worst enemy. And it certainly has held true when it comes to financial planning, that we get so emotional about that little green piece of paper. And if I can help clients manage their emotions and manage the baggage that they bring to the table, then I feel like we're on the right track.
Yeah. Well, that's where I got the saying was, people underestimate or people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in 5.
Yeah. It's a great point.
It's something about financial advice, growth, but I've seen it in business. It just applies universally.
Sure.
They think they're going to just take up golf, or I just started jiu-jitsu, right? And it's like, oh, I'll learn this. No, you're not going to be a black belt in 1, but you maybe in 5 if you go 6 days a week, for 3 hours a day. But you got to stick with it. But the reality is you'll get bigger than you thought. It may take a little bit longer, but most people don't stick with anything.
That's the problem. That is the problem. They don't stick with it long enough to realize the fruits of their hard work up front, and it is weighted up front for sure.
Yeah. So do you slap people straight in the group? Say, look, stick with it. You bunch of wimps. Quit looking for the easy button.
Yeah, and that some people that's gonna turn people off, but I'm very practical in my approach to anything, whether that's talking about money or being a better man or a better husband or a better father. And some guys are like, "Oh, you're a jerk." It's like, no, I'm not a jerk. I'm real. I'm being truthful with you because everybody else is lying to you. They're telling you it's going to be easy. They're telling you just make a couple of quick changes in life as well. And man, I haven't experienced that in my own personal life. Why would I tell anybody else that that's the way it is unless I'm trying to sell them something? And that's, I think, where people get into trouble is they don't plant their flags. Entrepreneurs don't. They just bounce from thing to thing to thing, idea to idea to idea. And what ends up happening because they're doing that is they're like, I'm in this for the quick buck. I need to make some money right now because I need to make my mortgage payment, and I might not be in this thing in 30 days. So let's do this. But I've planted my flag. I know exactly where I am. I know where I want to go. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I know I'm still going to be around in 10 years. And in order to do that, I need to tell people the truth about my own experience and the way that I view the world really works.
You mean I can't just do a press release to a ClickFunnels, to a Tripwire, to a self-liquidating offer, to an upsell, to a downsell, to a JV sale, and pay my mortgage?
If you have a funnel like that, please share that with me because I have not found it yet.
Oh, my gosh. Clearly, you need to be in my quadruple advanced platinum, diamond, titanium group.
Absolutely.
I'll send you that link right away.
Do, if you would, please. That would be helpful for me.
All right, man. So tell us about your marriage, huh? You've been very open about that. I was reading about it not too long ago in one of your posts. And I love the fact that you talk about the struggle and how you saved it. We got some good friends, Greg and Julie Alexander. They were on podcast years ago, and they went to see their priest. And like, okay, we're getting divorced. Just help us get through this divorce. And he gave them some counseling and some homework. And 20 years later, they're still going strong.
Awesome.
So, can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, let's see, 4 years into our marriage. Well, here let me back up. When we got married, we were in California. I was working down there, and we were married for about 6 months before my National Guard unit was activated to Iraq. And so 6 months into our marriage, I left for a year and a half. And I came back, and man, that was a struggle. It really was. I had to take care of myself for that last year and a half. She was doing her thing, and so we were dating all over again, and except for this time we were married. And so it was difficult coming back. And we worked through some things, and we did some counseling that helped out. And then 4 years into our marriage, about a year, maybe 6 months after we had our first, I just lost my way. I mean, I really did with the business and everything else that was going on. And I just wasn't the type of man that I knew I wanted to be. I wasn't a great father. I wasn't a great husband. And her and I got into an argument one evening. I can't for the life of me remember what that argument was about. It doesn't matter. But I remember saying the words, I don't want to be married anymore. And she said the same thing. And the next morning she left. And for the longest time, I blamed her. I alluded to this earlier. It's her fault. How could she do this to me? Why wasn't she appreciative? How could she take my son away from me? All the things that I did and said, and worse, putting all the responsibility on her. And look, I get it. I mean, it takes two to be in a successful and a fulfilling marriage and a relationship. But I remember the road I was on. I remember the cross street I was on. And I came to this conclusion. I said to myself, Ryan, this marriage, man, it might be over. I mean, we had been separated for roughly 3 months at the time. But I'm going to start going to work on myself because I feel like at this point, everything that I've done to try to salvage this marriage has actually driven a wedge further in the relationship. And so I'm going to go to work on myself. I'm going to get my health in check. We're going to get the money stuff back in check, back in order. I'm going to read. I'm just going to be a good person, the person that I want to be. And if this marriage is over, then I'm going to be a damn good catch for the next woman who comes in my life. I'm trying to think about the timeline here. I was in my late 20s. I'm like, man, I'm young, like this isn't the last relationship I'm ever going to have. And what was really interesting is I started this journey, and I surrounded myself with guys who had their families figured out, their businesses and their health figured out. I started to listen to CDs, not much podcasting going on around that time. I started to change, and it was really fascinating because the less that I focused on her and the more that I focused on me and taking responsibility for my own shortcomings and my own inadequacies, it was like going over to the wall and flipping a switch, and she responded to that. And this year, I think I said this already, we will have been married for 13 years. And a large part because I took ownership and responsibility for my own shortcomings and realized that the only person I can change is myself. So stop trying to focus on her. And this is where guys go wrong, especially if they're having struggles in the relationship, is we focus all of our attention and time and energy trying to quote unquote fix her and her problems without looking in the mirror and realizing you bring your own baggage, you bring your own problems, and you need to fix yourself because you have control over that. And hopefully she will be willing to fix hers, and that's how you make a marriage work.
Man, that's kind of cool.
It's awesome. I mean, it's amazing. You know, we still have our problems and our challenges. Like I said, 13 years. We've got 4 kids. You have 7. Did you say you had 7?
7, yeah.
Yeah, wow. We've got 4, and usually people look at me crazy. I can't imagine what they would say when you say you have 7. But man, it's awesome. And where I am with a business and where I am with a relationship and where I am being able to coach my kids and where I am being able to shut work off at night, I mean, it just wouldn't have happened if I didn't go through that darkest time in my life, which was the separation for 3 months from my wife.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, y'all took it pretty far to actually separate. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I had, you know what, here's the deal. I had everybody told me, Ryan, it's over. You got to give up. Even my mom was like, Ryan, I think this is over. I'm like, it's not over. Like I felt in my heart that it wasn't, and I could have stopped fighting. But I got to this point where I stopped, in a way, fighting for her, and I started fighting for myself. Mm-hmm. And when I did that, that's what salvaged our marriage, along with a lot of other things. But that's the catalyst for the change in our relationship.
Yeah. You know, you opened the podcast talking about that. You know, people allow excuses to slow them down. You know, and I always say, you know, just one excuse is enough to last a lifetime, right? But success takes daily work, you know. And I see too many people, oh, you know, my parents split up. Oh, I don't have a college degree. Oh, I got laid off. I mean, any of those things, that's enough to create a lifetime of mediocrity. Yeah.
And the hard part is those little excuses and things that you craft they're true, right? Like, sure. I didn't grow up without a father. That's true. Did that put me at a disadvantage? Yeah, maybe. There's other things that have happened in my life where those are true statements, but those things, those challenges and the pitfalls and the roadblocks and the hurdles and everything that you and I and everybody listening to this overcomes is the very thing that makes us stronger. It's that forged in fire, right? If we can overcome that adversity, and everybody has the ability to overcome the adversity. They may not know they do, but that's why you have to put yourself in the game. That's why you have to test yourself, is to see how far you can actually go before you break. And when you come back, it's an amazing thing, and you come back stronger than you ever were to begin with. That's for sure.
Yeah. Stop asking for it to be easy, huh? Ask for the endurance.
Right. I mean, gosh, easy would be fun for like an hour. And then it's like, okay, well, now what? You know, like I can't – like the weekend. I mean, this was a long weekend. We're recording this right after Memorial Day. And 3 days in, like Monday, I'm like, all right, I sat by the pool and been playing with the kids, and this has been wonderful. But I'm like, I need something. Like I got to do a project, or I got to be productive, or I got to do something. Because I don't want it to be easy. Like I want the grind in a way, and I want to sharpen myself and get stronger. And the only way to do it is to put yourself there.
Yeah. Amen. All right, my brother. Well, where should we send people to learn more about you and participate in the goodness?
Yeah, so the best place for what we're doing is orderman.com. That's our headquarters. So you'll find the blog, the podcast, the links to the group. You'll find everything over there. And so if you're interested in learning more about what it is that we're doing at Order of Man, it's orderofman.com. You can find us there.
Piece of cake. I like it when it's simple. Don't overcomplicate things, huh?
That's right. So true.
All right, man. Well, Ryan Michler, Order of Man, husband, father, entrepreneur, all-around good guy, veteran, hoorah. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast, man. It's been great.
Wes, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
All right, dude. Have a great day.
You too.
Veteran, father, spouse, entrepreneur, epic beard owner. I love hearing people take responsibility for what's going on in their lives. He was pointing the finger, placing the blame on his wife, and he realized it was him. We heard that from Sean Whalen. Unfortunately for Sean, it ended in divorce. But at least they got things squared away. They get along now for the good of their kids. But people that can do that type of introspection and then admit their failings are some well-adjusted, accomplished people. But what does it take to do that deep introspection? And I ask this all the time. Is there a way to get on the right path without hitting rock bottom? I don't know. I hope so. I think so. It appears to be kind of hard. I get it. Like they say, hey, once you hit rock bottom, you got nowhere to go but up. So I get it. But hey, if you've hit rock bottom and you need some help getting up, if you're just kind of meandering and you're afraid you might be approaching rock bottom and you want to turn things around before you get there, maybe I can help. Check out the Dig Deep program, digdeep.today. It's a one-on-one conversation with me. Sign up now while you still can, while there's still availability, because it's first come, first serve. You can order. As long as the button's there, you can order. Once you fill out the questionnaire, you'll get a link to schedule a time. And then, it could be a couple weeks out before we talk. But if you need some help and you think one-on-one with me can provide that help, check it out. All right, digdeep.today. And then also today, please share this episode. Leave a comment, leave a review on Twitter, leave a review on iTunes. It helps the podcast bubble up, helps more people see it, discover it, and then they can grow as well. And it's free, right? It's another way I'm trying to give back, help you sell mo better. Thanks for listening. Please, as always, remember to sell different.